Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Sarah and I just take you along with the things that I'm growing in here at my channel. And today I need to work on some of my seed starts that I've started, and I figured I would just film it and explain to you guys how I start my seeds in my process and things that I found that work and don't work. So if you are new to gardening and vegetable or flower gardening and starting your seeds indoors, here's just some things I found that work. Obviously you want to start off getting your seeds, and you want to do that ideally in the winter or the year before if you have a stash, whatever. But once you have your seeds, you need to figure out when you need to start them, because some plants grow fast, some plants grow slow. And the slow ones need started earlier, and or if they can go out in the colder temperatures, you can plant them out sooner. Things like tomatoes and peppers need hot weather. Here in Ohio, zone 6, I can't put those out till May or June, depending on how the weather's going. So you need to find your seeds that you want to plant, and then you'll look on the back. So this is ground cherries. These ones give me a lot of trouble. They're very hard to start, but some seeds are, some seeds aren't. And I think it's just fun to try. So on the back, it'll say, not always, but it should say when to start your seeds indoors. Some seeds you don't start indoors. You just plant outside, like carrots and other root crops like that. So that's a whole different video. But for seed starting, that's all we're talking about today. Figure out when you need to start them, because you need to know when your last frost date is, meaning after this date it should not freeze anymore. And you can go online and Google that for your area, for your city. I like the Farmer's Almanac website. I can put a link below. They even have a chart based on temperatures and then the moon phases of when to start seeds, when to plant them out and stuff like that. So I'll put that in the comment section below so that you can have that resource and help you figure out when to start your seeds. So these ground cherries say 6 to 8 weeks before last frost. So if I want to plant these out in this area, it says your last frost is like mid-April. So if I want to plant these out in April, which I'll probably wait till May, we'll see, I need to start them 6 to 8 weeks before, so I need to count back. And one way I keep track of that is I just get a calendar. I feel like there's free ones everywhere. I get a calendar and I will go through the Farmer's Almanac website and note when to start each type of seed for my area. Make sure it's your area. And I just write it on the calendar. So then I just go check the calendar. Oh, it's this season, and I'll put a line. It's very faint, I know, but I'll put a line for the window that I can start these seeds. So as long as I keep an eye on this calendar, I can keep up with when to start my seeds. So that's how I decide when to start the seeds. Now I want to show you how to start the seeds. Now I buy a potting mix, a seed starting mix-ish from a local source that gets them from like Amish people or something like that. A lot of people have said good things about it, and I feel like for a huge bag, I don't pay a whole lot. So just get a good starter mix. The nice thing with starting seeds is they don't need fertilizer and food yet. They just need clean soil that's not going to, grow other things that might hurt the seed. So find a good seed starting mix, and then I save these little trays like you get with buying mushrooms and stuff, and maybe other things, but that's where I get them from. And I save these, keep them clean, and I just fill them up with some soil and then sprinkle my seeds in. And here, I'll show you, like back here, I usually will divide it in half depending on how many seeds I'm wanting or plants I want of each type, and divide it in half, put my little markers in, sprinkle my seeds in, and then I'll just get a little extra soil and sprinkle them on top to cover it and keep it moist. I like to use a sprayer doohickey like this because it mists and lightly waters instead of flooding your seeds or washing them away or messing up the roots or anything. So I like a light sprayer. Just put them in these. They don't need sunlight. I have them here by the window because this is where my seed stuff is. But once they start to pop up, they do need sunlight, so I just leave them here. As you can see on this one batch came up. I planted these at the same time, and they're both eggplant, and this side didn't come up at all. And I planted these probably 3 weeks ago, if not longer. And I'm gonna give up on this side. But this side, the seed packets are 3 years old, maybe. I think they're 3 years old, and they didn't sprout at all. And you know, seeds don't last forever. So these I gave up on, but these guys need transplanted into their own trays. Another thing about transplanting seeds. So once they've sprouted, I like to wait until they're like solid, because I will like use this guy and kind of lift the soil up and start to loosen it, and then start pulling them out and putting them in their individual containers. But I don't want to do this when they first sprout, because I feel like I might break them. So I let them get a little bigger, but you can't let them get too big, because then all the roots will get tangled up, and then you're going to have another problem, and you will be breaking them. But like these guys, celery is so little. So I've been letting these guys sit for a while, and they're still so tiny, but I probably need to transfer them to their own trays. Now, another thing to consider, okay, so you've got your seeds, you got your potting mix, you got your little containers, you put your seeds in, you sprinkle your soil on top, you keep them moist. Make sure you keep them moist. So check them every day, every other day. If it's dry out, check every day, and just go back and spray them and keep them moist. Seeds need moisture to sprout. So once they've sprouted and you need to transfer them, the next thing you need to know is, and I didn't pay attention to this, and I think it hurt my garden last year, but things like peppers grow slow. And so they can go in a slightly smaller container to grow under the grow lights and not grow out of their space as fast. And so I'm going to put these in smaller containers, but things like tomatoes, and I had to look this up because I was like, do eggplant grow slow or fast? Because to me they grow slow, but it's probably because I'm not growing them right. But eggplant apparently is a fast growing plant. So these need bigger cells, or I can put them in smaller cells, trays, and then in like 2-3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks, I need to move them up to another size. So I could skip that step and go to a bigger size. However, I feel like there's so much information with gardening. So half the time you learn what you can and then wing it. That's what I say. And I don't know if that's the best advice, but that's what I do. But anyway, if you need to go to a bigger container, then that's another step. It's a chance to mess up the roots and just cause stress to the plant, so I don't want to do that. However, you don't want itty bitty plants in this, a pot this size with one plant, because that's way too much. I don't even remember why. Are you guys like this? Like, you'll hear all this information, you hear the conclusion, you remember the conclusion, and you do not remember the data as to why you came to that conclusion. Your brain goes, I don't need all that, I have the answer, moving on. So the answer is, you don't want a little plant in a big pot, because for whatever reason the moisture level balance something isn't good, and it could stunt its growth or something like that. So you want to put your plant in the right size pot and slowly work it up. So there's a balance. There's an art to figure out what size pot to put it in next. But I have trays. Let me go get them. So I have two main options that I use. I have these trays that are much smaller. They're about an inch and a half squared. If you can use a tray with more sections in it, obviously you can put more plants under your grow light. But if they need the more root space, you're gonna shoot yourself in the foot. So I have, what is this, like a 72 cell tray, and I got these off Facebook Marketplace. They're used. And I have this where it's 4x2, 4, 6, 8. 4x8 is whatever. This is a 4x8 tray. The individual containers come out. I've used these for 2 or 3 years and they're still going. So I just got these last year, and they're supposed to last for a couple years. We'll see. They're not the super strong ones, but I wasn't willing to spend all that money for those. Anyway, so my peppers and slower growing plants are going to go in these smaller ones, and my tomatoes and eggplants will need to go in this. With your seed starting trays that you use from year to year, you also want to wash them and slightly sterilize them every year. I actually have never done that, and maybe it's caused problems. I don't know. My plants sometimes do good and sometimes don't. But this year, I have had enough things go wrong that I've decided to try to do things more right. I rinsed out all my trays that I'm going to use today. And then I got me a spray bottle to mix up some bleach. Do you guys ever have this happen? You find a spray bottle empty in your house, you go to use it, and nothing will come out. And you're like, that's why that's been empty, because it doesn't work and we should have just thrown it away. So after a quick run to the dollar store, which is only 3 minutes away, I love that, and finding lots of other things that I needed, I came back and had a spray bottle that worked, and also realized it was a dollar store spray bottle that I was using before, and instead of pouring the liquid from one bottle to the other and splashing on myself, I could have just taken the nozzle off and traded it, but whatever. Hindsight's 2020. So I got my spray bottle all together, sprayed these guys with chlorine bleach. It's a little sunny today. It's hit or miss, but so I'm just letting them sit out in the sun to dry fully, to let that bleach fully evaporate, because I don't want that in my trays. But this is just to kill off any bacteria or funguses or things that could kill or harm your starts. So you start with a clean, sterile tray every year. You're supposed to clean them in the fall. I just get tired and throw them in the garage, and I just clean them now. So they're clean, and we are good to go. So when I go to put my soil mixture into my trays, whether it's for starting seeds or for transplanting them into the bigger trays, I first put all my soil, not all, a portion of soil into a bucket, and then I get it wet and mix it all up really good, because I want it to be uniformly moist. I don't want it dripping wet. I want it just moist, because I use like a peat moss mix, and that stuff can get crazy dry, and to re-wet it once it dries out is a bear. So it's important to keep this stuff moist without overwatering and without underwatering. So I mix it in with water first, so that I start with a moist mixture that I'm starting my seeds in or transplanting into. When you're pulling your seed starts out and putting them in their cells, I like to use a pencil and just make a little hole, and then I can guide my seedling in to drop into that little hole, and then just pack it in lightly, and that seems to work really efficiently for me. If your seeds don't start like these guys, can you reuse the soil? There's a jalapeno popping up. Do you see that little guy right there? Anyway, the question remains, can you reuse the soil? I don't think you're supposed to, for stale purposes. You know, what if there's some type of fungus in there or something that can harm your seeds? In the past, I have reused them, but like I said, I'm growing in this, and last year I don't feel my plants did very good. So I'm not going to reuse soil. This will go in the compost. It's fine. I think I pay $15 for like a 50-pound bag or something of soil. Maybe it's 40. I don't know. It's heavy. So it's not that expensive. At least last year it wasn't. We'll see about this year. But probably the best advice is don't reuse your soil. Once your seeds have sprouted, I did not do this very well of fertilizing and feeding my plants the last couple years. So I looked it up, watched some videos, and came to decide on using worm castings, because I have them, to create compost tea or worm casting tea to make fertilizer for my plants. But when plants are young, you want to use a fertilizer that's like 1-2-1, and the 2 is the phosphorus. So the plants need more phosphorus when they're younger. I'm going to use worm casting tea, and I have no idea what the ratio is for that, and I'm going to hope that it works, because other people on YouTube said it does. So this is why we're growing. It's, hey, other people do this, let's try it. I'm not afraid to try it. So what I have done is I put a couple spoonfuls, ooh, it's like fermenting. I need to use it. A couple spoonfuls of the worm castings, worm poop, and filled it with water. I used rainwater. I hear that is the best option, because city water is going to have chlorine. Well water might be salty. Rainwater's good. So I happen to have my, oh, you can't see it because of this, my setup for boiling sap sitting out in the rain empty, and those containers caught rain for me. So I had rainwater, and then I have let it sit for 2 days. You don't want to go past that. Let me smell it. It smells fine. But ideally you want to bubble it because the air helps the fermenting process, I guess. And so instead of having a bubbler and all that fancy stuff, I put it in here, screw the lid on, shake it up. I'm not going to shake it because I want to use this here in a little bit, and do that a few times a day, as often as I could remember, because probably the more the better. So I'm going to try this for my start. So once your seeds have popped up and you go to transplant them, that's when you start feeding them, from what I've understood, about once a week. When you water them, feed them some of this. And I think for these little guys, I'm probably gonna water this down by at least half, so that I'm not giving them too much. And yeah, so that's the basics of starting seeds, at least how I do it. Hopefully you've learned something. If you are thinking about growing a garden or have a little patch in your yard or a little container that you want to grow stuff in, I recommend starting seeds inside. If you have just a little space, you can buy plants. That's fine too. But if you don't have a grow light, you can grow things in the window. It's just not the best, but it can work. So I say if that's all you have and you want to try it, try it. You can even go to the dollar store and buy seeds, and they will probably grow. And get a little seed starting pack, get some containers or something, and have fun with this. It is fun to see things grow. Just remember, things need food and they need room to grow. So give roots space to grow as the plants get bigger if you're doing containers, and make sure to feed them regularly with some type of food, compost, organic fertilizer. I'm going to try this worm tea. Use something. I stay away from the commercial pest, Miracle Grows and stuff, because I want to go more organic, but you do what you want. So hopefully this has helped you get started, encouraged you to get started, and let me know in the comments what you're doing, or how many years you've been growing, or anything that pertains to growing. Leave it in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.